I joined an incredibly moving event on Kildare Street, organised by the Grannies for Palestine group. They unveiled a patchwork crochet banner stretching the whole length of Kildare Street across the front of Leinster House. Devastatingly, each square in the banner was crafted to represent 10 Gazan children who've been killed since Hamas's barbaric attack in October 2023. That means, Taoiseach, approximately 30 children who've been killed every day in the nearly 650 days since Israel launched its genocidal war on Gaza. Even since last week, Taoiseach, we saw the horrific scene, 6 children killed by an Israeli airstrike while collecting water in Gaza this week. Even the Israeli Defence Force is saying this was an error. Taoiseach, the protest group that were out on Kildare Street last week had a clear ask of your government. They asked that your government would pass the Occupied Territories Bill in full. And that's what I want to raise with you today in the final sitting week before the recess. We know, Taoiseach, that Gazan Civil Defence reports more than 58,000 people in total have now been killed by Israel in Gaza. Men, women, journalists, medics, aid workers and children, dead at the hands of Netanyahu's brutal regime that is now facing criticism even from its own former leaders in Israel, describing plans to resettle Gaza as akin to a concentration camp. And the gravity of a former Israeli Prime Minister using that language will be wasted on no one in this House. So, Taoiseach, who will say stop and take action to force a stop to the genocide? So, Taoiseach, I think we all want to hear from you a commitment that you will, without delay, legislate for the Occupied Territories Bill to ban trade in goods and in services. And we're prepared to sit over the summer, if needs be, to get that done. I've welcomed, as my Labour colleagues have, the positive steps your government has taken, and we acknowledge these. Support for the UN resolution for a ceasefire in Gaza. Crucially, recognition by Ireland of the State of Palestine. We welcome that. Just as we welcome last month's action by the Taoiseach, who was one of 8 foreign ministers to write to the EU Commission calling for a ban on all trade with Israeli settlements in goods and services. So it seems, Taoiseach, you and the Taoiseach do recognise your obligation to ban trade in services under EU and international law following the ICJ advisory opinion. In a recent meeting of the Foreign Affairs Committee, the Department of Foreign Affairs also accepted that limiting a ban to trade on goods would leave you just partially compliant with international law. Under EU law, we know there is scope for member states to act and to act unilaterally, and Israel's war crimes create a clear and pressing obligation to end all trade in goods and in services, just as Senator Francis Black's original bill sought to do. So, Taoiseach, before the summer recess, will you give a commitment that the Occupied Territories Bill will cover goods and services, and will you ensure that Ireland continues to be at the fore in pushing for a stronger stance from the EU to stop the genocide in Gaza?
Thank you, Deputy Taoiseach.
First of all, I thank the Deputy for her presentation, and I would pay tribute to Grannies for Palestine in highlighting the genocide against children in Gaza, the slaughter of children indiscriminately by indiscriminate bombing, and now the indiscriminate shooting at food checkpoints, which we have witnessed via those who have captured those images on social media. We often complain about the use of social media in other spheres, but it's worth bearing in mind that without social media in Gaza, the world would literally be blind to the appalling atrocities that have occurred there. And many journalists have paid with their lives in trying to bring the horrible truth of what is happening, and the latest iteration being an idea around what a former Israeli Prime Minister has described as a concentration camp. And you have, to be fair to you, identified all the measures that we have taken. And the Occupied Territories Bill will be a further measure that we will take. And I think it needs to be legislated for. It needs to be debated fully so that we're clear-eyed in terms of it. It is largely symbolic, if we're honest. And unfortunately, it seems to me, given everything that has happened to date, that Israel is oblivious to the views of people across Europe, oblivious to public opinion, to international opinion, has sought consistently to denigrate and undermine multilateral organisations, which I think is a very serious matter in terms of the United Nations. And I believe we should collectively be calling for the primacy of the United Nations in conflict zones, and particularly in Gaza and indeed in the West Bank. So there's been a consistent pattern of undermining UNRWA, and other OCHA and other UN agencies, without whom life would be absolutely unbearable, and is unbearable now because, of course, they've been denied the opportunity to bring aid into Gaza. And the European Union, we did have a fairly honest discussion at the European Council, and the issue rose as to who has the influence over Israel. Now, the United States has very significant leverage and influence over Israel. I would have thought other European countries have. I'm not so sure now. And the EU have made entreaties to Israel, and we're told that there will be further aid coming in. I believe it when I see it. And it can't be a kind of a negotiation on the basis of, oh, give us a bit and give us a bit. Like, there has to be a comprehensive framework for the facilitation of humanitarian aid going into Gaza. And that is not there yet. And I think we have to engage with Europe, with the US, in order to keep that pressure on the need for a ceasefire, on the release of all hostages, but above all now, on a massive surge in humanitarian aid into Gaza.
Taoiseach, Deputy Ivana Bacik.
We will keep pressing on the Territories Bill, but Taoiseach, there is more here in Ireland that your government could be doing to show solidarity with the people of Palestine, and in particular the children of Palestine. First, I've been working for some months now seeking urgent action from government to bring desperately sick children out of Gaza on a medical evacuation with their families, and we do need to do more on that. And again, I'm appealing to you and the Justice and Health Ministers on that. And further, in recent days, like so many others across the country, I'm really concerned to see the refusal of visas to the group of children and their mentors due to travel here from the West Bank with the GAA Palestine group. And Taoiseach, is there anything that can be done at this stage to facilitate this group coming here? I think we've all listened to the families here who are really distressed that this trip is apparently not going to proceed because of actions by our own Department of Foreign Affairs or decisions taken there. Can we at this point ensure that this visit goes ahead?
Deputy Taoiseach.
Could I say very resolutely, there's been no delay in the evacuation of children in respect of children who require hospital treatment or medical treatment. Absolutely no delay, and I think it's important that we get truth on that. And I'm happy, Deputy, for you to meet with the Minister for Health and the Minister for Justice, who will apprise you of the details of this. And in fact, we're, relative to other European countries, Ireland is well up. I think we're number 5 across the EU in terms of, we're placed 5th overall in terms of the number of patients that have been evacuated to European countries, after Italy, Romania, Spain and Norway. And we will do everything we possibly can. There's a further 18 to come, bringing us to 30. The issues are logistical, but we're working with the WHO through the Egypt crossing, okay? Sorry, Deputy, it's Deputy Bacik's moment. And we will work, but it has to be with the WHO. It simply has to be in terms of protocols, looking after the children, making sure everything is done properly. And we've agreed today that we formalise what is already happening. More family members can come in with the children because there can be issues. So there will be total family unification, and there has been in respect of that, and will be for the next 18. But there's no delay on our side in terms of those 18. No, there are others. The GA, sorry, if I could, on the GA, I'm perplexed by this. No appeal has gone in. There was no pre-engagement with anyone here on government side. I'm not clear even in the Gaelic Athletic Association formally. There's a bit of a...
Time is up, Taoiseach, and maybe there is a
further
question from Deputy O'Callaghan.
With how this has been handled overall.
Social Democrats.
Not on our side now, but on the side of
Thank you, Taoiseach. Deputy
we have
O'Callaghan.
child welfare. We have to be fully conscious of our obligations to child welfare and child well-being in how we handle all of this.
Like, share, and subscribe, and let us know your thoughts in the comments. We'd love to hear from you.